coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach Breakdown. This week we're going to look at training design with visual aids, setting up your pitch using different references for tactical systems. So really interesting topic. If you enjoy it and you want the breakdown of all these exercises and how we put them all together, you can get them for free on the Modern Soccer Coach website on the link below for free. No login, no account required on the website, modernsoccercoach.com. 4 different ways to use your pitch design to teach tactical principles in the build-up. Here we go. Okay, before we start, we always look at the why and the objective. So why are you going to modify your pitch design in order to teach tactical principles? What exactly are you trying to do here? And the 2 main focus points for me as I put this together is spacing, especially when you're teaching a tactical system, and we're going to look here at a 4-3-3, and then timing. And those 2 things are very, very complex when you're building a session design and you're looking at spacing in build-up. And if it's non-contextual and it's 5v5, the spacing can sometimes not transfer to 11v11. So if you have a rondo and it's a 5v5 small-sided game, and then you bring that into 11v11 and everyone is grouped together, again, sometimes those spaces can work against the team. Then also timing is a key component in build-up at the elite level, of course. So when you're dropping into those spaces, when you're moving out of those spaces, when someone else is coming into those spaces, a lot of different variables in that. So teaching timing is very complex, and then allowing the game to flow within that. These visual aids are really, really good in allowing you to coach the game and maybe guide players with reference points. So that's what we're trying to do here. 4 different ideas. Again, if you enjoy them, get them on the link below. Here we go. Okay, the first one we're going to look at is probably the most popular one, and that's the vertical channels, 5 vertical channels. Again, we're using 4-3-3 as an example. This visual aid helps players get a reference point for a number of different ways in their position. The front 3 players here occupy the 3 central channels and pin back the opposition back 4. The attacking midfielders move into these half spaces that disconnect the opposition double sixes. That leaves the back 4 and the holding midfielder and the goalkeeper all able to create maximum width and make it really, really difficult for the opposition to press because of the distances. So as well as effective spacing, this setup also allows you to create passing angles in the build and gain an understanding of those different relationships with positions, particularly against a pressing system. Then the higher up the pitch you work the ball and progress the ball, players are able to move into different vertical channels and support the ball. So it's not a sense of just staying in those channels. It just gives them reference points of where to go and when. Once the opponent is unbalanced in that build, then you've got a chance of getting runners on the weak side or from deep and create goal scoring opportunities. Vertical channels, really, really effective way to teach positional play. Okay, our next one is 3 horizontal channels. Again, a good reference point for build-up, especially when you're looking at preventing players from dropping into someone else's space or even committing too many numbers to a build and leaving few numbers higher up the pitch to actually attack in. So the 3 zones help provide reference points for centre backs in terms of assessing the type of pressure that they're going to be exposed to. For example, 1 centre forward pressing allows them to progress without any players dropping deeper, whereas 2 centre forwards against a 4-4-2 diamond here, this can allow the fullback to drop a little lower and solve the pressure. Again, timing is really, really important here. In these situations, the zones help with patience and maybe holding your spacing and then reading defensive pressure and then creating that understanding of when to drop and maybe when to hold your position. Again, as the ball progresses, the zones paint a really, really good picture of the possession team moving up together as they progress possession, and then this allows them to create a good structure underneath the ball, so if they do lose it, they can counter press aggressively and prevent counter attacks on the other end. The next setup we're going to look at is wide channels. Very, very simple setup, and it allows you to create 2 wide channels outside the width of the 18-yard box. Really, really helpful to coach midfield rotations in this occasion and painting a picture of how players can move early in the build to create space Here they create the central numbers with that little movement of the fullback dropping high, the 11 dropping inside. The midfielder can then drop into that space. And what that does is not particularly solve something straight away, but allows you to question the opponent and causes the opponent to adapt and potentially overshift. And that then allows the team in possession to exploit maybe a switch of play and get fullbacks high. Again, unbalances teams, moves players out of position, and can create really, really key spaces higher up the pitch where you can create opportunities and hopefully score some goals. And then the last one we're going to look at for a visual aid is a double wide channel. So again, very, very simple, but a really effective way to coach relationships between fullbacks and wide attackers, particularly in 4-3-3 systems. So sometimes having those two wide players on the same line can be challenging when you're trying to progress down one side because the angles are suddenly reduced. But in this setup, each wide player must occupy different spaces, and you can leave it up to them as to who does what. And this can improve understanding, communication, also challenges the opposition and how they're going to deal with it. So with the opposition back four unbalanced higher up the pitch, it can then open spaces again into finding deeper runners and create those goal scoring opportunities just by a simple rotation. Again, allowing the players to communicate and develop a sense of game understanding as they experience this here in 11v11 situation. Okay, so just some ideas there, coaches, on how you can set up your pitch and not even have an elaborate session design. You can play a game and then allow players, give them reference points into how you're going to play, align that with your system, and then hopefully communicate those principles in that game. The good news is you don't have to play 11v11. So if you're looking at this and saying, oh, this is great, but I've only got 10 players at training, we've got a solution for you. Don't worry. These principles are definitely transferable to small-sided games. So if you're a coach who enjoys these types of ideas, we actually have a new resource, Modern Soccer Coach Small-Sided Possession Games, where we've taken these themes and we've modified their design for smaller groups. It also comes in a PowerPoint presentation, so it's got the video up there as well as the session design. So you can see it very, very clearly in the video. We've got 30 exercises that you can work through, again, depending on what you're trying to communicate with your team. But the more consistent you keep those small-sided games and even a warm-up activity, and you can relate them back to your principles of play, and you can keep building and keep reinforcing those principles, you've got a better chance of transferring that into an 11v11 or a 7v7 or a 9v9 game, whatever it is you're playing in. Keeping those principles consistent and then communicating them alongside your team, I think, is a really, really effective way to build that game model and make it strong and effective. You can get it on the link below, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. You can get your copy today, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. You can order it, you get it right away. You get all the videos. Really, really good resource if you're looking at improving this element of your game. Again, it's not really complex in the session design, but it does require a lot of preparation in terms of how you're going to build and what you're going to do. Why are you using vertical channels? Why are you using double wide channels? Why have you chosen today to use those horizontal channels? It's a really, really good way to organize the session and take a step back and allow the players to experience it and then step in every now and again, rather than some sessions and some session design involves the coach to be constantly working. When you're constantly working, it means you don't really have enough time or enough perspective to assess and analyze. So making sure that you can set up a session that allows you sometimes to look at the tactical sense of the game and seeing whether players are understanding or not. This is a really, really good way of doing it. And again, opens it up to the imagination of the coach. There's some really, really, really creative coaches out there who have different types of design with their exercises and their pitches. Maybe we'll do that for a follow-up as well. Thanks so much for the support. Please don't forget to check out the resources on the link below, modernsoccercoach.com. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.